Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Mark Henry. I'm a senior engineer here at Outliers North American office located in Charlotte, North Carolina. Today, we're going to talk about how to diagram and document your enterprise network using a couple of Augmantic solutions. To get started, if you're watching this seminar live in the GoToWebinar, we will be sending out a follow-on email with a link to the recording of the session. If you're seeing this on Augmantic's YouTube channel or looking at it on Augmantic's Learn portal, you should be able to get the recording and any handouts and materials. If you have any questions, please use the GoToWebinar questions panel. We've got a couple of people here who will be mining that and passing me questions as we go, and we'll try to address your questions during the presentation live. Again, if you're here with the GoToWebinar session, please complete the exit survey on your way out. We appreciate your input. So what are we going to be talking about today? Really, we're going to focus on just a couple of really pointed challenges that all of us as network engineers have. And that's how do I keep an accurate network diagram and documentation of my network? How do I organize that information so that it makes sense to me and my engineers so we can actually use the information live? But also, how do we organize it in ways that make sense to like an auditor? I've done a lot of work with the SSAE 16, SOC 1, SOC 2 audits on the receiving end of those types of audits, and being able to have information that you can turn over to those auditors in ways that they can interpret very, very quickly and validate gets you through the audit very quickly. We're going to talk about how to create and update your network diagrams and include both device and interface information. And then we're going to talk about how to leverage live diagrams rather than just printed diagrams for ongoing performance and fault management. I like to marry back all of our topics to Gartner's IT Service Management Maturity Model. While it's a little kind of an older process model, it is extremely relevant, and I find it very useful, especially when I'm working with some of my training classes. So where does topology mapping, diagramming your network, where does that fall in with this IT service management? Well, it's going to help you out with overall inventory. It's going to help you out with problem management, process solution, obviously alerting and event management. Moving on, it's going to help you with problem predictions, automation of your problem solution. It's going to help you out as an IT as a service provider. So it's moving you much further out of the level 0 and 1 trend where so many organizations start well into the level 2, level 3, and start giving you much more value to your organization and moving you much more as a kind of a strategic business partner to the group rather than just as firefighters. So today we're going to be talking about two solutions, really. We're going to focus in on OpenAudit Professional and Enterprise, and we're going to talk about OP charts. Now you'll notice that I have two additional products on this slide. So we will touch on OpenAudit Community Edition, as well as NMIS, Augmantic's Fault and Performance Monitoring piece. If you have any questions, of course, you can always come to Augmantic's Wiki. Our community pages are all hosted on Confluence. Here we have the links for OpenAudit, which will walk you through how to install, configure, set up, and use OpenAudit to be able to audit your network. OpenAudit is scalable from small business networks of a handful of devices all the way up to hundreds of thousands, not tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of devices spread out across the globe. Of course, we also have a targeted wiki just for OP charts, which is going to be our topology mapping solution we're going to talk about today. And again, the OP charts wiki will walk you through how to install both NMIS, which is the core database underlying OP charts, and then OP charts, which sits on top of NMIS and does your topology mapping and also all of your dashboarding. If you have any questions at all, feel free to post them to the community questions board. The Augmantic engineers, as well as some of our senior users out there across the globe, answer questions there on a daily basis. If you are a supported customer, or if you're considering trialing or doing a proof of concept of any of our solutions, you can email us at support@opmantic.com. We'll be happy to get an engineer to provide you directed solutions and answers to your questions. And if you're looking to get a purchasing quote, you can reach out to us at usa@opmantic.com. If you're outside of the North American region, our USA sales office will be happy to do an introduction to any of our other regional teams. So why maintain accurate network diagrams? There's a whole host of reasons why to do it, what you can do it for, but really it's usually those types of nightmare situations that come back to haunt you, right? It's relying on network diagrams, maybe built in Visio or maybe done in PowerPoint, that are 3, 5, even 8 years old. It's having out-of-date information about your connections, your types of equipment, the circuits, the carriers, and then trying to be able to deal with a network audit, or trying to deal with unplanned outages. I did a contract not too long ago for a company that was absolutely devastated by a hurricane that came through the East Coast earlier this year. And all of their diagrams, even though that they had been burned to disk and stored in a bank vault, were so old that they didn't represent anything like what the company actually had, not for equipment, not for circuits, not for even system backbones. And as a result, we actually just set all of that aside and started from scratch and built their network from the ground up to get a new replacement. You also hear horror stories of whether it's a network breach, a problem with PCI DSS security, HIPAA high-tech problems, or impending audits that come down with limited notion, and companies scrambling to try to put together an understanding of what does their network look like. And of course, just the simplest thing is just employee turnover. The one person who really knows the network leaves, somebody new steps into their position, and whether it's because of mergers and acquisitions, you've been growing uncontrollably, or whether it's just poor planning and documentation, no one really understands how is our network configured, how is it set up, why is it set up the way it is, what are the subnets that we have, what are the devices that manage all of those subnet groupings, what's our NATing, how is everything laid out, how does it actually work as a network. So setting all those problems aside, we're going to talk today about two very pointed solutions that can work independently of each other. Although, frankly, from my experience and from my perspective, I really recommend that you look at using them together as a combined kind of holistic solution. The first of those is going to be Opmantic's OpenAudit product. OpenAudit comes in 3 different licensing levels. We have a free and open source community edition. We have a professional licensed edition, which adds in a ton of additional functionality above community, things like scheduling, more dynamic reports, an interactive dashboarding system. And that also, at the professional edition, that actually comes with a 20 device license for free for life. So if you have less than 20 devices on your network, you can actually use the professional edition and all of its features and functionality to be able to audit your network. And then, of course, we have an enterprise edition that sits at the very top of that licensing structure that gives you massive scalability. So if you're multi-sited, you're across a lot of different cities, a lot of different geographical zones, even different continents, you might want to look at the OpenAudit Enterprise Edition. But if nothing else, again, you can start right off with the Community Edition for free. And what's it going to give you? First off, OpenAudit is going to give you device discovery. So it's going to reach out across your network. It's going to find everything on your network, all of your routers, switches, hubs, firewalls, load balancers, all of your Windows workstations, Windows servers, Linux, Unix, HP Unix as well, ESXi servers, AIX devices, Sun Solaris, Mac OS devices, anything that's connected to your network wirelessly, it'll audit those devices as well. So it'll find phones and tablets and all kinds of crazy stuff, from heating and air conditioning units to DVR devices, IP-based cameras and heating and air conditioning units. it'll find it, it'll audit it, and it'll put it in the database for you. So it's going to find all those pieces for you. It's going to help you track all of your vendors, your warranties, your connectivity. It'll be a centralized place for you to keep track of all of the different types of ISPs you've got, all the different connections you have, and it's going to keep track of where all your devices are. So what's their physical location? So it's going to give you a street address, a building, a floor, a room, a rack, even a power outlet for every device. Coming up soon, we're currently on version 2.2.7, but coming out soon, you're going to be able to add visual rack management to that as well. So you'll be able to graphically plot out a rack, let's say a 42U tall rack, and move and assign devices to positions within that rack and see it visually, and also report on how many U's of contiguous space you have available in each rack. So you'll keep track of all your devices. And regardless of how many fields and tables OpenAudit has, you can, of course, create your own custom fields and custom reports as well to be able to drive all that stuff. So let's take a look at what OpenAudit includes. So this is the OpenAudit main dashboard. In the Professional Edition, you get 3 different static dashboards. In the Enterprise Edition, you get 5, and you also get the ability to create your own main dashboards as well as your own little widgets, your own line graphs or pie charts and whatnot. But taking a look at what OpenAudit can get back, let's just take a look at this quick view of this router. This is a little Cisco iOS device. So we're seeing all of its model, manufacturer, operating system, serial number information, all of your DNS information, all of your background pieces. Again, you can track all of your purchasing information in here as well. Keep track of your warranty expirations, your end of life, end of service. If you're leasing the device, you can keep track of that as well. Your purchase amounts. I mentioned locations, so you can assign all of your devices to specific geographic locations, and then you can actually do geo mapping as well. So there's a whole mapping module that's included with OpenAudit Professional and Enterprise, so you can have a nice geographic map of where all your locations or all your devices are located. And you can even keep track of who owns the device and how you define ownership, completely up to you. Some people do it by purchasing group, other people do it by support engineers. When it comes to networking devices, you're going to get back a full list of all the modules installed on that device, all of their hardware revisions, software revisions, serial numbers, etc. And when it comes to networking, you'll get all your networking table information back. Let's take a quick look at a Windows device. Just going to do a quick search for window. Again, make, model, manufacturer. This happens to be a VM, so we're getting all of the VM information. This is VM serial number, the VM host, so we know what VM is hosting this, or what ESXi server rather is hosting this VM. And again, all of your purchasing information is available here. Your location information is available. Hardware information, processors, memory, BIOS, motherboard, networking cards, SCSI cards, disk drives. So you're going to get your local drives, map drives, shared drives, RAID arrays, and all the drives that are in the RAID array. Your optical drives, so your CD-ROMs, rewritable DVDs, Blu-ray discs. You'll pick up all that. Your video cards, sound cards, monitors, keyboards, mice. You'll get all of that information. And on top of that, you're going to get back all the software as well. So you can do software license management using OpenAudit Enterprise. Okay, we've got a question from Dave. Dave says, this is all well and good, but how is this giving me a diagram of my network? Good question. So I said that there are really 2 solutions today that we're going to talk about. And the first of those is OpenAudit, which gives you all of your device background information, all of your hardware, your software, your organization, and it keeps track of all of the nitty-gritty information about your devices and your network. And then the second piece of that is going to be OP charts, and OP charts is going to do all my topology mapping. It's going to give me my visual diagramming of how devices are both physically and logically connected together. So in addition to software, I'm going to get software updates, all of my services, and in this case, all my ODBC drivers. If I had Microsoft Exchange Server, Microsoft SQL Server, if I had IIS or Apache or Tomcat installed here, I'd get lists of those as well, and all of the databases that are installed, the sizes of those, how many email clients I have. I'd get lists of all of the websites that are being hosted by those different web servers as well. So lots of opportunity here. In addition to having all of that kind of background information about your devices, you can also completely handle keeping track of things, again, like your vendors, your contracts, your purchasing information, your purchasing costs, your warranties, your leases, and all of your ISP information. So I just have one connection in the database here, but you can absolutely use this to keep track of all of your ISPs, your contracts, who the providers are, what the circuits are, where they're located, the IP addresses, both internal and external, et cetera, the speed, and the locations and where they connect to and where they connect from. Last piece of the puzzle here we're going to talk about with OpenAudit is going to be licensing. While it's not necessarily a key component of keeping track of everything in your network, working as a consultant, helping people out with disaster and recovery preparedness plans, one of the things I always like to stress is keep track of your software licenses, because once that stuff, if you lose your building, if your building burns up, God forbid, and those licenses are destroyed, once those are gone, they have to be repurchased. And at least keeping track of how many that you have and making sure that you have adequate insurance coverage can go a tremendous distance towards rebuilding that network and rebuilding anything that you've lost during a big DNR event. So having OpenAudit be able to go out and audit not only the hardware configurations of your equipment, but discover the software that's installed, discover how many licenses you have, how many have been used, keeping track of that information centrally, and then taking something like this and exporting it routinely out to a CSV or an Excel file, and then storing that information off-site with your backups. That way you have that information, so when it comes time to make an insurance claim or to recreate your network, you've got that base information to move forward with. So the next step is, if you're starting with keeping track of all of the devices in your network, so you found everything with OpenAudit, you've done device discovery across your network, you've found all your devices, you've audited them with OpenAudit, you have that information now, you can actually take that information and say, out of all these devices I found, I want to take this subset of devices and I want to actually be able to create some topology maps with them. And I want to be able to monitor them live and keep track of what their performance and faults are. Now, regardless of if you want to do fault and performance monitoring or not, you can absolutely leverage the capabilities of OP charts to do all the topology mapping for you and tie everything into OpenAudit directly. So let me just switch over to OP charts. Now, this is the main nodes view in OP charts. It's literally just a table view list of every single device that OP charts is connected to and gathering information from. And it's important that we're actually gathering information from these devices live, right? So OP charts with NMIS as its underlying engine, NMIS is reaching out to the devices on whatever schedule you set. And while it defaults for every 5 minutes, you can set it up to gather information once a day, once a week even, just to be able to feed OP charts and the topology system in here. Totally up to you how you want to leverage that, but it is available fully for fault and performance monitoring. But starting from here, I can actually take every single device in my network. And again, I've only got 50 devices here in this small demo network. But we have clients with tens of thousands of devices that start from here and start building out their topology maps. And let's really see how simple it is. I'm just going to click this button in the top center of the screen. It says View a Network Map. It's going to take all of these devices, everything that's available and viewed at the beginning, and it's going to lay them all out on the screen. It's just using a standard grid view at the moment. I'm just going to pick one of my routers. I'm going to right-click on it and hit Add Subnets. And now it's going to start connecting my subnets together and giving me all my connections and my lines. And then I'm going to start doing the same thing to more routers. And this is starting to get a little busy here, so let's change the layout over in the bottom left corner. I'm going to send this into a circle. And again, I may not be able to see, there are some devices in here that don't have any connection lines yet. So I'm going to go down here to Cola, which I like because it's actually a live springboard. And I can see that I have outliers. I have devices here over on the side that are not connected to anything. So I'm just start right-clicking and hit Add Subnets. Oh, there we go. And now I can see I've got a couple outliers here still. Right-click, Add Subnets. And I'm going to keep doing the same exercise. Now, some devices don't have any subnets. That may simply be because I don't have the right credentials. I don't have the right SNMP community strings to gather that information and get that device's addressing tables. But I can continue going through here. Looks like I think we've got everything at the moment. And then for any of these pieces, I can even go to the subnets themselves, and I can add nodes. I can look and see if there are any additional devices that are out here. And I can go to any of these routers and I can say add neighbors. So now this is going to go and look for logical connections, not just physical connections, but logical connections. Oh, and we've got some, there we go. Now this process, I'm doing this manually now as a demonstration. This can be automated. You can do this behind the scenes. You can create these however you want. I can actually take this diagram now. I can pan, I can zoom, I can save this out. I can share this with other engineers. I can also remove bits of this diagram that I don't find useful. So for example, I've got this router up here that doesn't seem to be connected to pretty much anything else anywhere. And so I might want to delete some of these subnets from here. And so I can delete these pieces off because they're not useful to me. If I don't have any devices on those subnets, it really doesn't do much for me. I can change the layout, whether I do it with the layout option in the bottom left or whether I drag and drop pieces around. But again, I can zoom in, zoom out, I can pan. You can see we have some devices here. You can see this is just set up as a RJ45 jack picture here. So there's a device there, but it's not actually in my database. I'm not actually collecting any information from it, although I am aware that it exists. So lots of good information here. And of course, all of this is live. So if I left click on one of these devices, I get all of the information about that device, and I can even drill into that device and look at its fault and performance information. Now, from my perspective, this is a live topology map. This is a live diagram of my network. And there's an awful lot of stuff that I can do with this. Every single line that's here, this is actually the live connection point from this device out to that subnet. And so I can see by clicking over that connection point. How well is that doing? What's its overall health? Am I collecting on that or not? So we can see what's happening on each of these pieces. And by drilling into this device, I can drill into the device and I can see the device's configuration. I can see its memory and CPU and every interface that's configured on that device, where it's configured, where it goes to, who's connecting to it, what kind of traffic is along that interface. So this is, again, this is live. And I know we've got a couple of people who have popped up questions already. One of them were straight up, Can I save this? Can I export this, this diagram? Currently, you cannot. So our diagrams, our topology diagrams, are designed specifically, inherently, and purposely to be live interactive pieces. They are designed for engineers and for managers and even for auditors to interact with. And so the key that we found here is not to do a topology map and then output to a static PDF, print it out, bind it, stick it on a shelf. We have found that that's really not only not useful, but it's actually counterintuitive, because the moment you print it, it's already out of date. And if you bind it and stick it on a shelf, you will never update that document. And if it was built manually using something like Visio, again, every day that goes by, the value of that depreciates dramatically. And after just 30 days, especially in an enterprise environment, the value of that is gone from any positive value actually to a negative. Because what it's done is everyone will think, well, gee, we've got the diagrams on the shelf, it's all printed, it's in the 3-ring binder, everybody's got a copy, we've got a copy off site, it's on DVD. But the problem is every day that goes by, that information ages and is less and less relevant. And so from Augmantic's perspective, one of the things that we strongly advocate is using a combination of OpenAudit and OP charts. Create your topology diagrams, create several of these and organize them. In fact, let me give you an example of what that looks like. So I might, for example, let's go back to the nodes view. I might just want to create a topology diagram of one specific geographic location. And down the left-hand side, I've got a filter. So if I pick location, and let's say that I want to pick, let's say the Latin American office. So I've got 3 devices in the Latin American office. I can say view in network map. Now, again, this is going to give me my topology map. It's just going to give me my 3 devices. Add subnets. Add neighbors. There we go. So we've got a couple of subnets here that don't seem to go anywhere. I can certainly add nodes to those subnets if I want to, or I can delete them. Let's just get rid of them. I don't need those subnets right now. There we go. I don't need these guys either. That guy's just hanging around. Let's delete him. There we are. So now, completely up to me how I want to organize this stuff, right? And I can sit here for days on end and try to figure out what's going to look cool. But I can take this now and I can save this. I can add additional information to it. So for example, I can add an interface link line. I know that maybe my Mexico router connects to the cloud, and that's my dedicated WAN link to another offsite location. I can add that in. I can save this. I can share this. But the important thing might be simply just being able to say LATAM, Topo, and save this out. So now I can create a topological map of every single location. And maybe I do it manually and I have one of my engineers go through and once a week recreate the topological maps for each location, or I can script that, right? So everything can be done at the CLI. It can be a little bit of a DevOps procedure, and that could be done every day. It could be done every 4 hours, where a new map is created from a location. So every device is assigned to a physical geographic location. Maps could be created by those locations, or they could be organized by business service or application or SLA level or responsible party or owning party, whatever makes sense to you. You can organize your information that way. That could all be scripted through, again, some DevOps scripts, and that could be recreated every couple of hours or once a day or once a week automatically, and new maps be created for you and ready to go for your engineering team live with all the information you need in it. Let's take a look back here at the PowerPoint for just a second. So we've also got a question that was keyed up. Great minds think alike, I guess. But from again, from our perspective, one of the things we try to advocate for is this kind of a pyramid organization where you organize your network diagrams. In the idea of a pyramid, we have a very, very abstract diagram at the top. And that might be a topological diagram, it might be a geographic diagram, and then being able to drill in from that top level into more and more levels of granularity and levels of detail. And again, this is still all part of diagramming your network, because each of these pieces give you more and more layers of detail and of information. So let's take a look at our dashboards. All right, let's start with the augmented global map. All right, so again, we're starting just with a very gross granular view. I've got an example of one WAN link connection between sites, and I can drill into these locations and explode these locations out and see all the different devices that are here. Now, granted, this is just one view and one option. This is something that we recommend as kind of a starting point for many companies, just simply because with one click, you can create a dynamic, fully optimized global view of all of your locations that will continually update itself. Now, on the left-hand side, we also have a grouping of some other more granular views. So if I wanted, for example, to see what's going on in my Charlotte region, and what I've done here is I've just created a topology map here in the top right. I've added a couple of additional links. So here's my uplink to Asgard. Again, each of these lines, however, are all live. So all these live, and I can drill into each of these pieces. On the left-hand side, we've added in a weather map. Again, not so much necessarily for diagramming, but more for fault analysis and DNR preparation, right? And I can see a group representation of everything that's up here in the topology map boiled down into one simple icon. I have added a small chart down in the bottom right. Again, you can build however many of these you want with OP charts. You can add in whatever performance metrics or data you want to. We just happen to pull this internet services piece in. And if I want to go even more granular than this, a diagram of just the applications running in the Charlotte office area, along with some CBQoS output information, a synthetic application monitor, and an ISP connection speed check. So lots of different pieces that are going on here. Some of these, this last chart, especially this last dashboard, rather, especially, goes above and beyond really system diagramming and documentation. But having this type of information available, I would rather give an auditor like an SSA 16 SOC 1 SOC 2 team coming in to audit me. I'd rather give them more information than they need and demonstrate how we do things and do things live and why it's important, than give them too little or have too little and not be able to address all their questions. We had a question here come up and said, well, if you're doing everything live and your business burns to the ground, how do you have any documentation? Great question. What I do is I actually put my servers out in the cloud. So I deploy my monitoring solution out in the cloud. I have local collectors on-prem that gather information and then push it to a master server in the cloud. And then all of that information is then backed up and available to me. So I can actually go backwards in time and see how my devices looked over time historically for however long I want to be able to store that information. You're only limited by how much storage resources you want to throw at the solution. All right, everyone. I want to thank you all very much for your time today. That concludes our webinar on how to quickly diagram and annotate your network. If you have any questions at all, my contact information is on the screen now. That is my personal cell phone number. Feel free to give me a call, or you can email me at markh@autmantic.com. Thank you.